Hello, my gorgeous, lovely peeps. This is Chris from Recombu, and I'm here with two of Motorola's most recent handsets. The Moto X4, £349 here in the UK, nice little mid-range device, and the Moto G5S Plus, slightly bigger, as you can see there, and also a bit cheaper at around the 250, 260-ish mark. So which one is going to be best for you? What's actually the difference? Well, obviously, as you can see there is a clear dimensions difference. Not a massive one, to be honest. It's a 5.2 inch of the Moto X4 compared with a 5.5 inch Moto G5S Plus. So you get a slightly taller handset in the G5S Plus. It's about the same width, ever so slightly different there. And the general width as well, more or less the same. They're both ever so slightly chunky. I'd say the Moto X4 is slightly more slender, but there's really not a massive amount in it, to be honest. And of course, as you can see from the front, they basically look the same. You can pick them up in a couple of different hues. There's a nice sterling blue effort. This is kind of a pinky gold one, but you've got a couple of little choices here in the UK. And of course, you get a fingerprint sensor down below as well, which in both cases is nice and quick and accurate and responsive. So we've given both a tap at the same time. As you can see, you're basically straight into your desktops. There's maybe an ever so slightly different delay on the Moto G5S Plus. Moto X4 is slightly nippier, but not much in it. And they're both nice and accurate as well. You'll find that only if your fingers are a wee bit dirty or wet are the only times you'll struggle to actually use the fingerprint sensor to unlock the handsets. If we flip over to the other side, you will of course see that there is a clear difference in terms of the design. The Moto X4 uses a glass backing, and it's nice and shiny. It does pick up smudges rather easily, unfortunately, but generally pretty good at masking them as well, so you don't need to cart around a cleaning cloth the whole time like you do with the likes of the S8. So yeah, not too bad at all. And the Moto G5S Plus, of course, sports a metal finish, a nice matte metal finish, bit of a tongue twister. And it's quite a rugged device, but then so is the X4 so far, touch wood. We haven't seen any sort of damage, scratches or anything like that on that after a couple of days of pretty heavy use. Some rather heavy handling in there. And of course, they both rock, as you can see, a dual lens sensor. We'll touch on that later. And it's ever so slightly juts from the surface of the phone in both cases, but again, nothing to get worked up about. But one other big difference between the two is the fact that the Moto X4 is fully water resistant. It's IP68, so you can actually give it a good old dunking in the bath, in the sink, get it fully submerged and it'll be absolutely fine, whereas the G5S Plus is really just sort of splash proof. You can use it in the rain, and that's about it really, to be honest. In terms of the general button layout and everything as well, as you can see there's a slight difference there. The Moto X4 uses separate buttons for the volume up, volume down. It's actually, occasionally you can accidentally hit the volume down instead of the power button if you're in a bit of a rush, we've discovered, whereas the Moto G5S Plus, of course, uses a single bar for the volume, so it's a bit easier to differentiate between the two just from touch alone. You, of course, get this bit of aerial banding on the G5S Plus, which you don't get on the X4 on the back there. You just get it sort of up top and down below as well. As you'll see from this little angle here, you get a bit of Type-C USB action on the Moto X4, whereas it's the old school micro USB on the G5S Plus, unfortunately. Boo. But you do also get a headphone jack on the X4 down below, and it's up top on the G5S Plus. So in both cases you can use wired headsets, which is great stuff. And little other things like positioning of the SIM tray, it's up top for the X4 and on the side for the G5S Plus. Nothing major there. So what about that screen tech? Well, let's just dive into the handsets again. As you can see, it's a 5.2 inch, it's a full HD on both displays. So yeah, 5.2 inch on the Moto X4, 5.5 inch on the G5S Plus. So in terms of the size difference, this doesn't really make much difference at all, to be honest. Both are perfectly comfortable for watching a bit of Netflix or doing whatever you want to do. There is a slight difference in terms of the general output, though, however. If we, for instance, go into Recombu.com, a very fine website indeed, hopefully you can notice for the side-by-side, slightly warmer images on the Moto G5S Plus. You get nice crisp white on the X4, which is definitely more appealing to, certainly to our eyes. Not everyone might agree with that. In terms of brightness, both are super powerful. So if we just pull down in the notifications, I've turned off adaptive brightness. So this is maximum brightness levels right here. Really, really good for when you're using it outdoors. If you're in a bit of sort of harsh glare, you'll be able to get clear visibility. It sees away of reflections and all the rest of it pretty easily. So that's all good. Let's just dial that back down again so our camera isn't going, whoa, what's going on? There we go. And in terms of general vibrancy and everything, they're both fine as well. If you tap into the settings, go into the display menus, you'll see that both have a variety of options that you can play around with, one of which is colour mode. Whoops, it would help if I actually tap the right thing. And as you can see, you can choose between standard and vibrant. Got them both on vibrant at the moment. Doesn't make a massive difference, but those colours are ever so slightly punchier in vibrant mode. Stand out quite nicely. Yeah, they're both quite attractive displays. As I say, the X4 is ever so slightly our winner. And of course, with that full HD resolution, images are nice and crisp. As you can see, if we get in close, you won't see any individual pixels or anything like that. They're both running Android Nougat 7.1.1 in a reasonably nippy fashion. We'll touch on performance in a moment. And of course, that's got a fairly vanilla finish to it as well. Motorola hasn't done much tinkering, which means we should hopefully get an update to Oreo on both handsets imminently, which would definitely be good. But for the meantime, it certainly does the job quite nicely, and you do get the lovely Moto Assistant in both cases as well. Unfortunately, it is a bit pared down on the G5S Plus. You get quite a simple layout compared with the many features packed into the X4. So for instance, in the actions, which both have, you have the ability to take a quick screenshot using 3 fingers on the X4, something that you don't get on the G5S Plus. And you also get the Moto Display functionality on this one as well, which allows you to trigger your device by simply picking it up or reaching for it, which is great. Although they both have a Moto Display option as well, which, as you can see, notifications basically fade in and out as they pop in. And of course, a night display mode for creating nice warm visuals, filtering the blue light for a more comfortable evening experience. We tap out of that. You also get the Moto Voice Assistant on this bad boy, the Moto X4, which basically just gives you hand-free operation, especially good if you're driving. And you get Moto Key as well, which we're yet to fully test out, but it certainly seems to do the job from various other hands-ons that we've seen. And that basically just allows you to unlock your apps and dive into your website accounts using just your fingerprint instead of a password, which definitely saves a bit of time and saves you having to remember countless passwords. Definitely a good thing. So as you can see, you get more functionality built into the Moto X4. Both of these phones support a bit of NFC as well, so you can do a bit of tap to pay and all that, which is always good. And in terms of general performance, you get Snapdragon 625 on the Moto G5S Plus, whereas it's a Snapdragon 630 on the Moto X4. 3 gigs of RAM in both cases, and to be honest, they're both not super performers. You do get the occasional little stutter, bit of lag. If you open them up, occasionally it can take a little while for them to pop up. In this case, it's been absolutely fine, of course, now that I'm demonstrating it. But you will see some lag and stutter here and there. It's not quite top slick performance despite that vanilla version of Android. But you know what? For everyday use, it's absolutely fine. There's not too much hanging around. And games do still play with a decent enough frame rate and everything as well. So if you just want something that's not going to be uber demanding, then these will do the job. As for the battery tech, you get a 3000 mAh cell packed into both of these handsets. Both support a bit of turbocharged power, which I just love saying, frankly. It's fantastic every time. And you get sort of a decent amount of use. It looks like we're going to get probably about a day of use for the Moto X4 with sort of reasonably heavy operation. And we get a similar sort of result from the Moto G5S Plus, maybe ever so slightly more, depending again on operations. So we'll be giving that a full testing out, but you pretty much guaranteed a full day of use, even if you're hammering them pretty heavily. One other feature that comes pre-installed on the Moto X4 that you don't get on the G5S Plus is Alexa, Amazon's voice assistant. So you're supposed to say, Alexa, there we go, and occasionally she pops up, occasionally she just doesn't bother. She's a bit like my kid, just doesn't respond at times, only when she wants to. Alexa. So basically you can then ask her to search for information online, you can control your smart home, do all kinds of great stuff. Go check out our full Alexa tips and tricks on recombo.com for more information on that. Which brings us nicely to the camera tech. So basically, you get a dual lens camera on both of these handsets, as we saw before, but there is quite a bit difference between the two. So for instance, on the Moto G5S Plus, it's a dual lens 13 megapixel camera. Both lenses basically operate in tandem, so there's no swapping between them or anything like that, and it's just to add a little bit of extra depth of field to your shots. So a pretty standard Motorola camera app, as you can see here. You can just tap the quick tap of the shutter button. Well, let's turn off the flash. And it takes a little while to take your shots at times, depending on how good the quality of the light is. Not the fastest of actions, but you can also switch to full video mode. And if we swipe it into the settings, as you can see down here, you can shoot up to full 4K Ultra HD video, which is great. And flick back here, and as you can see, it's pretty straightforward camera experience. You also do get some bonus camera modes as well. You get full manual controls, you get this depth of field sort of bokeh mode, kind of like a portrait mode on most other handsets, and a panorama mode. So pretty stripped back, pretty straightforward, but you get a bit of HDR as well, which is lovely. So that's that. It works very differently on the Moto X4, so you get two different lenses, 12 megapixel standard lens and an 8 megapixel wide angle lens. And that just allows you to swap between the two on the fly. So here's the camera app. I seem to have zoomed right in. Excellent skills. So as you can see, there's a new little icon down here which allows you to swap between the two. So in the standard lens at the moment, the 12 megapixel, you swap to the 8 megapixel with a quick tap, and there you go. As you can see, you've got a much wider field of view. So it's really good for those vistas and things like that. If you're going to be doing a lot of traveling, taking a lot of sexy shots of canyons, things like that, definitely this will do the job nicely. You get all the other standard modes such as HDR and the rest as well. And if we tap up here, you've actually got quite a few bonus modes. So for instance, we've got the funky new color mode. So if we just grab Mr. Bear over here, there we go. And just give a little tappy tap on his t-shirt, you can then do funky things with it. Basically draining all of the colors apart from that color and so forth. It's a bit shonky, to be honest. As you can see here, it's not working particularly well. Because of course it's sort of picking up the different shades because it's a complex material, but it does work for more simple objects quite well, and sometimes you can get some quite funky effects. If you tap back into the camera modes, you see of course you've got panorama, you've got the depth of field mode again. If you give that a quick tap, basically all it does is it adds a nice bit of background bokeh. As you can see here, you can change the degree of severity of the thing. There you go, just give it a quick snap, and then it just helps your subject to stand out, basically. Back into the camera modes, you've also got this funky sticker mode, which basically allows you to turn yourself into a cat, add some sunglasses to your face, all kinds of random stuff. It won't work on the Teddy, unfortunately. You can turn yourself into a unicorn, a spaceman, whatever you want to do. It's fun for kids, I guess. I'm a bit of an old grump, so I don't really care about things like that. And if we dive into the manual mode as well, not to the stupid sticker mode again, and you'll see you've got full controls over the likes of the ISO levels and the white balance and things like that, which of course you also get in the G5S Plus. So you get a few bonus camera modes in here that you don't get in the good old Moto G5S Plus. We just dive back into full photo mode, and if you swipe across, you can see once again you can shoot up to full 4K Ultra HD video, but that's just using the standard lens. If you want to actually swap to the wide angle lens, again with a quick tap of that, then that maxes out, unfortunately, at full HD 60 frames per second. So you can't shoot 4K with the wide angle lens. So that, in a quick nutshell, is the difference between these two handsets. The Moto X4, as I say, is slightly more expensive, about 100 quid more here in the UK, £349, compared with the Moto G5S Plus. For that, you get water resistance, you get a slightly nicer screen, nice crisp white, and the rest. You get more camera features packed in, you get more Moto Assistant features, and you get Amazon Alexa coming pre-installed. Oh, God's sakes, really? Now you hear me. Now you hear me. Thanks, Alexa. As standard. So you get a few little bonuses, and of course it's more compact, which makes it a little bit easier to handle. Although thankfully, at least if you dive into the Moto Action thing, you can see you've got the ability to swipe to shrink the screen on both handsets, which definitely helps with the old one-handed use. You should be able to just sort of swipe towards the corner. It usually takes me a few goes when I'm doing a demonstration, because of course, why wouldn't it? There we go, and then it just makes it that little bit easier to use one-handed. So you've got that both of these handsets. That's cool. So any questions, comments, theories about why we're actually here on this isolated planet in the middle of nothingness, just let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everyone. Love you. Bye.